Fine. I'll do Doc Aurlock. All right, so this video goes out to EkelM2K because there's a handful of requests for Doc Aurlock over the course of multiple videos. So I guess this is me saying, yeah, you got it. You got it. We're going to cover Doc Aurlock. We are going to be building the fun bear who is completely unfocused, but still will make a good and powerful board state. Doc Aurlock Grizzled Genius is a 2-mana Simic commander that says that spells you cast from your graveyard and spells you cast from exile cost 2 less, and plotting cards from your hand also costs 2 less. He is a interesting commander because there's a ton of strategies we can use with him. We can use adventures, we can use plotting, we can use retrace, we can use escape, we can use damn near anything that casts from anywhere other than our hand. And I figured, why not go ahead and do all of it all at once? This is going to be one of the least focused yet still very fun builds I have tackled, because we do have one small focus, and that of course is one of my favorite things in the world: big dumb dudes. So here's the game plan. We are going to get big, stupid creatures out, and we are going to clone those creatures, because it turns out that there's actually a decent bit of cloning effects that all use effects that Doc Aurlock cares about. So let's go to one of the first ones that's great to clone: Triplicate Titan. Flying, Vigilance, Trample, 9/9, and if it dies, he creates 3 tokens that are all 1/3 of a Triplicate Titan. We are also going to be running a Sage from Beyond, a 5/5 flyer that makes our spells we cast from anywhere other than our hand cost 2 less. Then let's have a Hydroid Krasis. While cloning this isn't great, it is a generically good, big, stupid guy. And then let's talk about the creatures who benefit from our commander's ability the most. Cosmos Charger allows us to foretell on our opponent's turns and has foretell on himself, meaning that with Doc Aurlock, we can cast this card for 3 mana instead of 4 mana. Then we have the Dread Horde Linworm, which can be used to protect Aurlock with his deflection ability, and then can come down and he can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or less. Sword Coast Serpent can be used as a bounce spell that can also be unblockable if we've cast a non-creature spell when we play it. Lunar Hatchling has basic land cycling and escape, so we can cast it for 4 with Doc Aurlock after cycling to get a land from our deck into our hand. Then we have Emerald Dragon, which can counter any activated or triggered ability from a non-creature source, and then is a flying trampler after the fact. We then have Horn Locked Whale, which is a 6/6 creature. His Lagoon Breach ability allows us to take a attacking creature and put it on the top or bottom of an opponent's library, and when we play it afterwards, it's a Ward 2 with Flash creature with 6/6, and it enters the battlefield tapped unless it is our turn. So we can play this on an opponent's turn. It can't block for us, but we are playing it for 4 mana for a 6/6 with Ward 2, which is plenty if we are just trying to have a strong board state. Then let's talk about our clones. Visage Bandit has Plot, so we can play it for 1 mana using Doc Aurlock, and it can copy any creature on our board. Splitting Image can copy any creature from our board, and then you can use Retrace to cast itself from the graveyard multiple times. Retrace makes us discard a land, and then we get to use its ability over and over again. Then, for our flashback cards, we have Crackling Counterpart, Quasi-Duplicate, and Croaking Counterpart, which all clone a creature in various ways, and then have flashback to be used again later in the game. Then we have Mirrorhaul Mimic, which is a clone like Visage Bandit, but it has Disturb, so it can become a Ghostly Mimicry, which can copy a creature, and then give us copies of that creature every single upkeep, as long as the creature is enchanted. Let's also run a 6-card recursion package so we have access to our most powerful cards as often as possible. We want this deck to be very resilient because it is not super focused, so we need to make sure that we do not fall to our own ineptitude halfway through a game. We have Runic Repetition, which can return an exiled card with flashback we own to our hand. Slickshot Lockpicker, which has Plot, so of course it's great with Doc Aurlock, and whenever it enters the battlefield, an instant or sorcery in our graveyard gains flashback if it didn't already have it. Dryad's Retrieval can get a card from our graveyard to our hand, and it, of course, has flashback itself. Tin Kali Hunter can grab any creature card from our graveyard and exile it, and then we can cast it, which Doc Aurlock, of course, will lower the cost of. And then if we cast the Tin Kali Hunter himself, we can pay 0 rather than the mana cost of any creature spell we cast from exile. A fun ability when you have 7 mana is to pay 2 mana into the Hunter's ability, exile a creature card, and then play Tin Kali for 5 mana, and then after you've done so, cast the card that you pulled away for free with the Hunter. Then we have Savvy Trader, which lets us have a further discount on spells we cast from anywhere other than our hand, and of course, this lets us exile a permanent from our graveyard and then cast that card ourselves. Then let's have a Sphinx of Forgotten Lore. It has Flash, Flying, and whenever it attacks, an instant or sorcery card in our graveyard gains flashback until end of turn, which just makes this a very, very cheap version of Lear, Disciple of the Drowned. And that does it for the main cards of the deck. We want big stupid guys, we want big dumb dudes, we want to clone those big dumb dudes, and we want to recycle those big dumb dudes. That is our goal. Now let's talk about how we are going to draw enough cards to play a consistent game of Magic the Gathering. We are running a 16 card draw engine in this deck because so many of these cards benefit from Doc Aurlock's ability. Think Twice draws us a card, and then with Flashback draws us another card. Deep Analysis draws us 2 cards, and then with Flashback will draw us 2 cards again. Plan the Heist surveils 3 and then draws us 3 cards. If we don't have no cards in hand, it will just draw us 3, or if we have cards in hand, it'll just draw us 3 cards, and it's got Plot, so we can basically play this for 4 or with 2 mana with Doc Aurlock. Tracker's Instinct lets us grab a card from the top 4 of our library, put it in our hand, and then it has flashback to be used again. Memory Deluge looks at the top X cards of our library, where X is the mana we spend into it, and then we get to cast it again from the graveyard. Though remember, the further we discount Memory Deluge, the fewer cards it will find off the top of our library. Commit to Memory puts a spell or non-land permanent on an opponent's library, making it a pseudo removal card that can then be used to wheel everybody's hands from the graveyard with Aftermath, another ability that works with Doc Aurlock. Feral Encounter lets us look at the top 5 cards of our library, exile a creature from among them, and then play that creature, which of course is discounted by Doc Aurlock. At the beginning of our next combat phase, a creature we have will then fight another creature on the board, or deals combat damage to a creature, but close enough. Young Blue Dragon can scry 1 and draw us a card, and then it's a 3/3 flyer after the fact. Oracle's Vault is the strongest draw card in our deck, allowing us to exile cards from the top of our library and cast them for free if we have already used its ability 3 times throughout a game. Temporal Anchor lets us scry 2 and then throw any card we scry away into exile, which we can then cast for a discounted rate with Doc Aurlock. Reason and Believe lets us scry and then look at the top card of our library and then put it onto the battlefield for free if it is in fact a creature card, which is fantastic since we can cast this for only 3 mana from our grave. Behold the Multiverse scries 2 and draws us 2 cards and has Foretell. Dream Thief's Bandana allows us to take cards from our opponent's deck and of course cast them from exile, which Doc Aurlock loves. Fibble Flip gives us the ability to look at the top card of our library at any point, and then the top card of our library gets Plot, meaning that every card in our library is now discounted by 2 with our commander. Storm of the Festival goes off the top 5 of our library and throws 2 cards with mana value 5 or less onto the battlefield, and then it has a flashback cost of 9 mana, but we can then cast it for 7 mana because of our commander's ability. Sorry, flashback cost of 10 mana discounted to 8 mana. I can't count. Finally, Battle Mammoth has the ability to be foretold, so we can cast it for a grand total of 4 mana, thanks to our commander, and whenever a permanent we control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, we then get to draw a card. Fantastic way to punish our opponents for trying to get rid of our big dumb dudes, and of course, he himself is a big dumb dude at a 6/5 Trampling Elephant monstrosity. He doesn't have the creature type monstrosity, but I mean, look at this thing. You'd call it a monstrosity if it was coming for your house. And that does it for all of our draw spells. This should allow us to get through most of our deck at a decent click, and a lot of these cards serve double duty because they are either adventure cards or aftermath cards, what have you. That said, let's go ahead and talk about removing our opponent's pieces from the board so that we can make sure that we do not fall behind them. A lot of our removal pieces are clogged up in other sections, so we only have 9 cards that are dedicated solely to removal. Let's begin with Balluna's Gatekeeper, a 6/5 vanilla creature, but it has entry denied, which can throw a creature we don't control back to an opponent's hand. Ettercap is a 2/5 reach creature that has an instant ability we can use to get rid of a creature with flying, so we'll pay 3 mana, blow up a creature with flying, and then we'll pay 3 mana again to get a 2/5 reacher afterwards. Breakdown blows up an artifact or an enchantment and then gives us a junk token, which we can use to get Impulse Draw, which Doc Aurlock will discount. Stormkeld Herald lets us blow up an artifact or enchantment, and then of course it can be made into a 6/7 creature afterwards, which can't be blocked by little dudes. Then we have a single counter spell, well, more counter spells than just this, but we have a negate, which can counter a non-creature spell, and then a Sapphire Dragon, which has a negate as an adventure ability, and then we can play it later as a 5/6 flyer that also scries us for 2 when it swings. Resculpt gets rid of any artifact or creature. Extraordinary Journey gets rid of up to X target creatures. It's basically a weaker version of Curse of Swine, but if a non-token creature enters the battlefield, then if it's from exile, then we get to draw a card once per turn. Notably, the Extraordinary Journey does allow our opponents to recast their creatures, so the idea is to turn this into a draw engine after it's removed or disrupted our opponents. And then we have Kellen Inquisitive Prodigy, a 3/4 that blows up artifacts every time it swings, and it has a Tail the Suspect ability, which allows us to investigate when we pay 2 mana. So we're going to pay 4 mana total for Kellen to get a lovely, lovely card that will draw us a card, and then, of course, Kellen himself at the same rate that we would have gotten if we just casted Kellen all on his own. Let's also run the board wipes Phasing of Zalfir to blow up everything that we don't like. You can also phase things out to protect them. Consuming Tide to bounce everything except, say, Doc Aurlock to every player's hand. And then Ezre's Predation, which creates a bunch of tokens that then fight our opponent's cards, which also gives us a board state after we are done. And that does it for all of our removal. Ultimately, we're running like 15 or 16 pieces if you count all of our adventure cards that are tied up in various things, which should be enough to get us through most games. That said, let's now talk about ramping and getting to a reasonable amount of mana. We're going to be running 10 ramp spells, and some of these have great utility with Doc Aurlock, but we are running some generically good ones as well. Rampant Growth is a generically good one. It grabs a basic land from the deck, puts it on the battlefield tapped. Font of Fertility and Wayfarer's Bauble do the same thing, but they do so by paying 1 mana into them and then 2 mana afterwards. Beanstalk Giant grabs a land, puts it on the battlefield untapped, and then it can be cast from exile to be a creature that is as big as many lands as we have. Beanstalk Worm has an Explore ability that also can turn it into a 5/4 worm afterwards. Just honestly, it's just a decent card. There's not much to write home about. You're paying 5 mana for a crawl worm, effectively. That also lets you play an additional land. Search for Tomorrow grabs a basic land onto the battlefield untapped, and we can play it on turn 1 thanks to its suspend ability. Sky Serpent Seeker has Flying and Death Touch, giving us great protection, and its Exhaust ability lets us ramp really, really hard. He's also a great clone target because cloning a lot of Flying Death Touchers is just really, really fun. Then we have Deep Reconnaissance. For 3 mana, we can get a basic land from our deck and put it on the battlefield tapped, and then we can flash it back from our deck, flash it back from our graveyard by paying an additional 5 mana, which of course we are just going to pay 3 mana because of Doc Aurlock's ability. Finally, we are going to run a Spring and Mine. Spring lets us search our library for a basic land, put it in the battlefield tapped, and Mind allows us to draw 2 cards by paying 4 mana later on in the game. Whew. This is, I don't like talking about this deck because this is identical to talking about Planeswalker decks. Every card has so much freaking text on it because they have to do 2 things. Anyway, on the basic lands, we are running 12 forests and 13 islands as our deck does lean very heavily blue. Our dual lands are Temple of Mystery, Overflowing Basin, Command Tower, Vine Glimmer Snarl, Simic Growth Chamber, Flooded Grove, and Tangled Islet. The islet is here because it is a forest that we can grab with Forest Searchers. Then we have the fetching lands of Escape Tunnel, Terramorphic Expanse, and Evolving Wilds with a Myriad Landscape here because it allows us to ramp as well. Then we have our utility lands, Edgewall in, which can be any color, and of course we can sacrifice it to return any adventure from our graveyard to our hand. Then we have Mosswort Bridge, which lets us get free spell casts off the top of our deck, Pit of Offerings to get rid of problematic cards in our opponent's graveyards, and Litjara Mirror Lake because we are a deck that wants to be able to clone a lot, and Litjara Mirror Lake allows us to clone at a pretty okay rate from the land zone. Whew. God. So many cards to talk about, but we're not done because I still have to playtest the deck and show you how it runs. All right, in terms of keepable hands, I think any hand that has a couple of toys for Aurlock to play with and a little bit of ramp is probably good to go. This hand has 3 toys that he really likes: Splitting Image, Quasi-Duplicate, and Beanstalk Giant. It has a ramp spell in Wayfarer's Bauble, and it's got every single bit of mana that it needs to cast Aurlock. So let's open up with an island, tap, Wayfarer's Bauble, and pass. Next turn, we get to draw, tap 2, and then play Doc Aurlock. Next turn, we go into turn 3. Let's go ahead and pay 1, 2, 3. Beanstalk Giant is going to go into our library and grab us a land. Right now, we need more green, so we'll get that green, and Beanstalk Giant is now over here. Moving to turn 4. Let's play an island, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Beanstalk Giant is on the board as a 5/5. This is not the strongest opening, but it will grow with time. Moving to the next turn, and let's play a Evolving Wilds, giving Beanstalk Giant a little more power, and then let's go ahead and Quasi-Duplicate. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Let's Quasi-Duplicate. So we'll create another Beanstalk Giant, and then we're going to pay 1, 2, and we're going to crack the Evolving Wilds and the Wayfarer's Bauble to get a couple more lands out of the deck. So let's go ahead and get this forest, this island, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now both of our Beanstalk Giants are 7/7s. Let's swing one at an opponent, make them block, because it's a lot of life to lose this early in the game, and let's move into the next turn. We have a Behold the Multiverse, which we can foretell, which is fine. You know, honestly, at this stage of the game, Sphinx of the Forgotten Lore would be fine. Quasi-Duplicates Jumpstart. I can just discard a card in my hand to make this work. I don't need this Stormkel Vanguard, but Deep Analysis has Flashback. So let's discard the Flashback card that costs way too freaking much, and let's Quasi-Duplicate a Beanstalk Giant. So we have another Giant out. And it was cast from our grave, so it only costed 2. That goes away now. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana available. And for this, we could either foretell Behold the Multiverse and use Storm card. Let's do that. No. Instant Sorcery gets Flashback. We don't need that effect right now. So yeah, 1, 2. Let's foretell the Behold the Multiverse. 1, 2. Let's go ahead and remove an artifact or enchantment, probably somebody's Soul Ring, out. Turn 6, it could also be a Bolas of Citadel. And Behold the Multiverse. During your turn, cast it at a later turn. Okay, so we can't cast that right now. So let's go ahead and go to turn 7. Extraordinary Journey. Let's pay 1. And let's cast Behold the Multiverse. Scry 2. I don't want this Lock Whale right now, so let's throw that down and draw 2. Play the Forest. All of our Beanstalk Giants are now bigger. They are swinging for 24 damage when they swing now. We have a lot of mana available. We can play Temporal Anchor. I think that's the move. 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's play Temporal Anchor just in case our opponents get really, really frisky on their turns. If they wipe out our Beanstalk Giants, we want the Temporal Anchor to be able to keep us in the game. So then we're going to swing with these, dealing 24 damage. And we move into the next turn. Temporal Anchor is going to scry 2. Exiling these away. Whenever I choose to put them down, I can exile them instead. I can play these cards. So I'm going to choose to play these cards. We're going to play the Forest, pumping up our Beanstalk Giants a little more. And then we're going to pay 2 mana, and we're going to cast the Memory Deluge, drawing 2. Let's see here. We could use this Return target card exile with flashback to our hand. I think what we do is 1, 2, 3, 4. Mirror Hall Mimic. Let's go ahead and make another Beanstalk Giant copy. This is just our goal, is to swing with an army of Beanstalk Giants. And then we don't need anything else right now. So we're going to pay 3, and we're just going to do Runic, and we're going to put Quasi-Duplicate back in our hand. And then that'll be it. That'll be it for the turn. And we are swinging with 9 times 3. We are swinging for 28 damage right now, right? Is that 28? No, 27 damage? Yeah, 27 damage at an opponent. And we're just going to keep scaling these guys up a little bit. I play an island. Now I got 40 damage on the board with my Beanstalk Giant clones. And fuck it. We're here for a fun time. Oh, sorry. This Root Coil Creeper is exiled, actually. Ha! Ha! It's a Croaking counterpart. We're going to pay 2. We're going to Croaking counterpart, and we're going to create another, not Mirror Hall Mimic. We're going to create another Beanstalk Giant token that gets to be 1/1. So this Beanstalk Giant token is an 11/11. This is in our grave. We're going to pay 1, 2, 3. Croaking counterpart. Another Beanstalk Giant at 11/11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then our draw for turn. I completely forgot we have a draw for turn. And then now let's do 1, 2, 3. Quasi-Duplicate. Let's make another Beanstalk Giant. That's our board. Our board is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 61, 72 damage in Beanstalk Giants, with the ability to recycle the Quasi-Duplicate and do it again, with the ability to recycle any clone card with Sinks of the Forgotten Lore and do it again, with the ability to cast Splitting Image and then retrace it to do it again and again and again and again. We can just keep on making clones. We just keep on making clones. If we had another turn... 1, 2, these are our cards that are gone. Here's our draw. Cards from outside our game will cost 2 less after we cast Sage of the Beyond. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom, here's the Sage. Now we get to pay 1 mana for the Savvy Trader. Savvy Trader will get Runic Repetition into exile, which we can then pay 1 mana to cast, which will put Croaking Counterpart back in our hand, which we can then pay 3 mana to play the Croaking Counterpart and give ourselves yet another Beanstalk Giant. We just keep doing this. We just keep making Beanstalk Giants. That's all we're gonna do. It's all the Beanstalk Giants. Man, what happens if we try to upgrade this deck, actually? Because this is a Big Dumb Dudes deck, Outcast Trailblazer, having plot is fantastic for us. Being able to play this for 1 mana effectively and get a massive benefit from drawing lots and lots of cards from playing lots and lots of big creatures is great. Moment's Peace is a repeatable fog in our deck, and our deck does have the ability to reuse flashback cards multiple times, so this is a fantastic fog. Virtue of Strength is a mana tripler that is great. We do run a lot of basic lands in this deck, and Virtue of Strength being able to be a card that gets us an important card back and then is a tripler afterwards. God, this thing would extend our turns so hard. Lyra, Disciple of the Drowned, giving all the cards on our graveyard flashback will work if you happen to play a lot of cards that don't have retrace or flashback, but it does cuck you out of being able to use counter spells, so please be careful. And then we have lots of creatures in our graveyards we want to reuse, so Conduit of Worlds will be able to reuse creatures like Beanstalk Giant, and of course it'll get the discount from Doc Aurlock if we choose to. We can also play lands from our graveyard with this, so fetch lands become far more important. Uba Mask is a great stacks piece, which can make all of our opponents just be in a really shitty situation. We get to cast discounted cards because of Doc Aurlock, but our opponents are stuck just playing the top card of their deck and only the top card of their deck for the rest of the game until this is removed. Sword of Fortune Frontier gives us Impulse Draw by swinging with any of our big dumb dudes, and of course Impulse Draw is the best kind of draw for Doc Aurlock because he discounts our cards off of Impulse Draw. And finally, a Railway Brawler is a fantastic inclusion as well. It's got Plot, which is great for Aurlock, and it makes all of our big dumb dudes bigger, dumber, and dutier. That said, that is it for Doc Aurlock. Thank you very, very much for suggesting him. I had a fun time building him, and I hope y'all had a fun time watching him get played. That said, if you haven't already, please consider checking out my streams over on Twitch. Please consider supporting my main channel if you haven't already. Also, you can support me financially if you like what I'm doing over here by going to my Fourth Wall shop and going over to my Patreon shop. Then I also happen to be here asking you, the viewer, yes you, please subscribe to the channel you just watched the video on. I would greatly appreciate it. I also have a Blue Sky account. Please check me out there where I'll give you live updates on stuff that is going on. I'll let you know when I'm going live on streams. I will also let you know if I'm going and doing anything out with my community. All that stuff is available over on my Blue Sky. That all said, thank you for watching. I hope every one of you is having a fantastic day. And as always, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Briskreek, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.